What's going on, world? This is your girl, Marky Lemons-Ryhal, and I'm elated today to state that we are officially members of Industry Syndicate Network, which brings you the best podcast from the world of real estate. And I am elated today to have none other than Candace Spears with us. What's going on, Candace?
Hello, Marky. Listen, all the energy, like pre-show now, I'm so amped for our conversation.
I am too, because I shared with something intimate with you, and it was the fact that my aunt and uncle kept a thank you note that I wrote to them umpteen thousand years ago. It wasn't umpteen thousand. The date was January the 2nd, 2002. And I shared with you how it got me emotional because I forgot what I wrote in the note. And finally, I just did it. And it was a repayment of a loan that they had given me for a business I had started in the 90s. And it hit me one day a couple of weeks ago that I hadn't paid them the money back. Not that they were looking for it. They never even mentioned it. But that I should, I don't want to, here's the true thing. I don't want anyone to say I owe them anything. Okay. And I mean nothing. So I called them and said, hey, when time permits, can you come by and pick this check up? Because I know that I still owe you some money. Mm-hmm. And she sent me back the note that I wrote stating that I was going to pay them their money. Mm-hmm. It's had me all emotional, right? But I know today we're going to discuss mindset. We're going to discuss entrepreneurship. And so if you could do me a favor and tell my audience all that you do, because see, all I'm going to talk about is the fact that you're building a community up in Wisconsin, right? Because you got your own land and you building your own dang on community. But besides all of that, how did we even get there, Candace?
Yeah, so I do a few things. First off, I am all about ownership. Just ownership in general. I know we're going to kind of touch on this in our conversation when we start talking about mindset and entrepreneurship and all that. So I have a coaching operation, got a coaching team and staff where we help corporate women make their leap into full-time entrepreneurship. So that's one thing. The other thing is I've gotten into the real estate space as of late last year and into real estate investing and doing a little bit of development. This is it is a development. So this is an interesting process. Working on a short-term rental portfolio. So that's happening. I have a marketing agency that I've kind of iced a little bit. My marketing agency actually was focused on real estate agents because of my mom, who has been in the real estate space for over 30 years. Like I grew up, like I was telling you, Marky, I grew up in a real estate office, taking these little forms and addendums and pretending I was doing stuff and postcards and all that other stuff. And so that was a naturally easy thing for me to get into. But most of my time now is focused in the coaching operation and then in the real estate space. I'm also a podcaster, so I know what that's like. I'm the host of Ambition, Honey, and Hustle, over 320 episodes now about, as you probably can imagine, the hustle, entrepreneurship, getting into it, making it happen, that type of thing. Mommy of 3 girls. My oldest turned 12 today.
Happy birthday. Because that's a birthday for everybody in the house, right? Happy birthday.
That's true. Those are events for everybody when that happens. So yeah, mommy to 3 girls, wife to 1 hubby, and 2 guinea pigs floating around.
Oh, you got 2 guinea pigs too, huh?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a house of 6, right? Okay. And I have only sons, and I'm optimistic that one day I will have granddaughters, an all-star lineup. The first one I know is going to be my husband's grandchild because he anxiously wants a granddaughter one day. So the second kid on I can claim, but the first one, if it's a girl, it's 100% his. Yeah. So you deal with women in corporate America thinking of making the leap. So let's come back for a second. When I think about real estate, unlike you or unlike my son, Skylar, who were born and raised essentially in the world of real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it is the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th occupation of most people. And they are taking a leap. They are leaving probably a paycheck every 2 weeks, some medical, something that they believe is security. So when we think about, but they don't necessarily like it, right? They're not having fun. They're not enjoying it. They don't feel empowered. When we think about mindset, what is the first thing that you want a person to feel when they say, you know what, I'm going to leave this every 2 week, every one, whatever it comes, once a week, once a month, every 2 week check, right? That we got all those intervals down.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, once a month, every 2 weeks, every week. What's the first thing they need to take into consideration?
So the first thing I always say to folks is you really have to have this attitude that the way I put it is this: there is no plan B.
I love it.
That's something that I live by. And what's behind that is you got to sort of recognize that, hell or high water, I'm going to get through this. Right? I'm going to be sick. There is no plan B. Like, what do you mean? Go back and get a job? No, I've got this thing that I'm going to figure out how to make it work and pivot and decide to do this, decide to do that, whatever. But there is a time and place for options. I'll put it that way, right? One of the times and places for options is when you're in your 9 to 5, right? And you begin to have that mental recognition that when I'm not happy, and because I'm not happy, I have options. I don't have to be here, right? I could choose to do something else, right? I could choose to give my time and energy to this endeavor or to become an agent or whatever it is, right? Time and place for options. Once you've made that decision, that's another piece, right? Deciding and getting into decision. Once you've made that, if you dwell in that land of options in terms of like, oh, well, this may not work. I'm just going to go back to my job, or this may get hard. I can always go back to my job. No. You've got to sort of take the options off the table and realize that you're going to make things work. It's just a matter, is it going to be path A, path B, path C, right? It just changes a little bit. So that's the first thing I would say, that there is no plan B. You got to just go.
And I love that, because that is the mentality, and it 100% is a mentality. I'm often speaking to agents. I'll give you an example. One I was speaking to, and it was about her LinkedIn profile. And I said, when I look at your LinkedIn profile, it says, if you want to get a job in corporate America. I said, you need to change the language of your entire LinkedIn profile. And she was like, but what if I have to get a job? I said, well, first of all, that's the wrong mindset. I said, but it's very simple. Copy and paste what you have into a Microsoft Word document. Write you a new bio as if you are the coldest realtor out here. And if all else fails, you will then be forced to go and find your copied and paste document and put it back, right? But I'm thinking to myself, that was very short-sighted, right? I left well, let me say this. I was in real estate. I took a sabbatical and I went to work for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals for 2 years as a pharmaceutical sales rep, because I was an unwedded mother. I wanted those benefits, that company car and that American Express card. But when I tell you I hated pharmaceutical sales, I hated it. And so I was getting ready to leave pharmaceutical sales. I was planning coming back to real estate full time. And I was talking to my mother and I'm like, but Mom, how do you just leave your 6-figure job? I'm Skylar's only way, blah, blah, blah. My oldest son. And my mother was like, girl, look, this is why I have these. She said, have the faith of a mustard seed.
Talk about it.
She said, you can always go and get you another job. She said, you didn't have any pharmaceutical experience and you landed up at the #1 pharmaceutical sales company in the world. She said, imagine what you can do now you got some time under your belt. And I quit. And I've never looked back, right? Because sometimes you need a mother to tell you, right? But my mother was like, have the faith of a mustard seed. And what was funny was when I got the job in farm sales, my mother said, girl, you don't know anything about farm sales. I told her that I was going to get hired in farm sales in February. I got hired February the 14th on Valentine's Day. And so that mindset, but it's also those affirmations affirming right back over it. So there is no plan B. And right now in real estate, with inventory looking the way it's looking, we got to go discover that inventory, because there is no plan B, hell or high water, right?
You know what, too? There is something in what you just said there, right? When you're talking about this person that you were working with, right, with the LinkedIn profile and all this, a lot of times when you have been an employee for so long, there's an identity piece here, right? There's an identity play where you kind of, your identity is sort of wrapped up in, all right, I am, so-and-so project manager at XYZ Corporation, which might have been some of what her LinkedIn profile said. Fill in my title at such and such corporation, right? It happens, right? But there's this identity of I've got to be here, I belong here. When you can start to think about the fact that it's not so much about your title, but it's the value that you bring. And the value that you bring as an employee is the same value that you can bring as a cold behind realtor or anything else that you choose to do, right? But it's only you that's kind of stopping you because you're in that, this is my identity. This is what I present to the world. This is what LinkedIn is for. This is what my colleagues are looking at. No, I don't care. I don't care who you are. I remember, because I had that shift happen for me when I was in corporate. And it had happened to me because of a job that went away, right? I had made a move from one company to a new company. And this new company, prestigious company, it's great, got everything right, the corporate cards, all this, all that. And in about 8 months, my role had went away. And I had this realization, first off, while having like a breakdown in the parking lot, because things like that, especially when your identity is wrapped up in that job, those things can crush your ego, right? They can come and get you. And so I had this revelation of like, hold on. Who is Candace, right? What do I really bring here? And so I had vowed to myself that the next role that I went into, right? Because I went into another corporate role. The next role that I went into, Candace owns Candace. Everything that I bring, I own it. And so let me tell you, Marky, when I went into that next role, right, there was a lot of things I was doing with just like being able to facilitate discussions and just creative ways and pull things out of people. And I noticed that there were people at the company that were coming to me like, oh, how did you do that? Can you tell me how that, we could use that in a meeting. And so me changing my mindset that I own the value that I bring, I was like, oh, okay. In fact, I was like, oh, okay. That was when I wrote this book, right? This Bring Your Crayons to the Office. What it was is at the job I was a business analyst at the time. Mm-hmm. At the job that I was at, people were asking me for these things. And okay, so I own it. So I'm going to put it in a book, make sure the world can get to it on Amazon. I had executives with copies of my book on their desk, right? People knew like, oh, this is what I bring to the table. And I can easily bring that on the outside. I can easily do this. So when you're thinking about making that move, right, into real estate or whatever you're doing, when you're shifting from employee to entrepreneur, that mindset of ownership is why I believe in it so heavily. Like you got to recognize, you got to own your talent, right? Your value. I always say time, talent, and identity. So you've got to recognize it and own it. Don't allow yourself to be defined by what you see or by your employer. We don't even need to go into riskiness. That's a whole nother subject.
But let's come back. So bring your crayons to the office, right? Because I'm loving. Now I could see me in the office, look, with all my crayons. Actually, girl, look, you talking my language. I got all my little color bins right here with all my little color markers, right? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? So in bringing your crayons.
Let me give you some context. So this book was written for business analysts and project managers because of the role that I was in. So it was about them being able to, elicit requirements or elicit the things that were necessary to move a project forward in creative ways. Because people didn't always respond to, hey, so tell me about so-and-so, right? How do you get people to open up and really engage? And so that's what that book was about, because I would really I would bring in methods that other people didn't do. Like, okay, let's draw out what you're thinking. Let's just visualize. What would this person look like? What would this look like? And we would actually have crayons or color pencils or markers or whatever.
So now I've just envisioned the whole real estate process being different, right? That when you show up, you could pull out a sheet of paper with some crayons, especially if you're dealing with families. Because one, it would be a unique selling proposition. Other people aren't doing it. But then also, it might not just be crayons, right? It might be an arsenal of tools, right? To bring the best in your clients out in the buying and selling process to empower them, but also to build future referrals. Now that's what, because see, I'm thinking I got all these color pens, right? We don't have to do color pens. I could come with markers and post-it notes, right?
Post-it notes galore.
Right. You could and look, you could pack all this up. And when you show up, you can educate them. It doesn't have to be stuffy, right? It doesn't have to be corporate. And you know what they would say? Candace sold my house and oh, we had the most fun in the project. Look, she had mustard seeds. She empowered me to know that I could do this. We had post-it notes. I was clear. And then I got, the last time I used some crayons, I felt like a kid, like, right.
All of that.
All of that.
It's not being afraid to be different. Like, because immediately people are not used to doing that, right? They're just not used to, wait, you showing up to a listing appointment and what we doing here? What's going on? I bet you they will remember you. I bet you will get something from them that nobody else was able to bring out.
You know what? Yesterday, there's a young lady, her name is Crystal Swain Bates. She has sold 375,000 books on Amazon to date. I was in her coloring book class last night, right? And because I want to do a children's education empowerment series for my oldest and youngest son. Imagine if you had your own little coloring book page, right? Because adult coloring books are so powerful. And that's you and your real estate business explaining it because it helps with the stress. Girl, I just came up with my next product.
Girl,
thank you. Hey.
Make it happen. I'm telling you that sometimes, we discount. It's almost like, and I like to go towards things that are childlike, right? Because there's something about children. Even you think about the mind. And I'm a big studier of like the mind. And I got Joe Dispenza's book on my desk here, all this, right? Children, they don't have these reservations. That we often, as they grow older, right, we get them. But even their imaginations, I look at my youngest who is 7 and this bunny is so dirty. Like I wish she would just let us wash it. But this bunny, I watch how she cries if we leave the bunny in the car because, oh my gosh, the bunny is away. He feels certain things. He's this, he's that. Imagine if we had, even as adults, took that lens of, wow, anything is possible. Right? Anything is possible, right? I can easily just envision myself, whether it's, selling, getting to the Millionaires Club, President's Club. I'm trying to think of things I've heard from my mom's past, President's Club or whatever, right? In real estate. And oh my gosh, it's so real. And I can create a scenario that is so real that I have to work my reality into it, right? I'm living in this thing that doesn't exist yet. And that goes into the mental game too. Now I can get on a soapbox with that, Marky, but the mind is powerful in just this entire process and just allowing yourself to be creative, leave the self-judgment behind, leave other people's judgment. What you think other people might say is not your business.
What other people say is not your business. I love it. So we understand that we don't have a plan B. So now we're going to do this thing, right? And we're going to be as authentic in the process and look at creative solutions, right? Now I want you to put a different hat on. This is going to be kind of crazy. I'm thinking about this because essentially you were born and raised in a real estate office. What advice would Candace had given to her mother when her mother started her real estate business 30 years ago that you believe would have impacted your mother's business as an entrepreneur?
This is a juicy question, Marky. Oh my God.
Because we all got that one thing we would have told them, right? I'm third generation in the restaurant business. So I got some ideas of like my granddaddy, when he retired, and we sell more pork rib tips than anybody in the city of Chicago, they still don't have a POS system. Let me just say that. My granddaddy was still walking into his business in the morning. He would grab a brown paper bag, because they bagged their food in brown paper bags, and he would write his order down for today. And we're talking about running a multi-million-dollar business off a brown paper bag. That was his way of doing it. Now, I would have told him, little daddy, look at here now. We need a POS system up in here, right? We should have taken credit cards sooner. And I'm going to tell you another thing I would have told him. At Lem's Barbecue, people come in and exit the same door. So they place their order here, but the cashier is down here. Then they have to walk back past the people out the door. I would have 1,800 years ago, right back in 1954, had everybody walk in, pay, watch they order, get they order, leave. It's just a simple system. So there are some things that I know I would have told them to do differently. That would have, one, they wouldn't have people walking back and forth like they do now. That means that your employees aren't going to extend as much energy to work for you, right? We would have been able to calculate to understand when we should run specials and things of that nature. So I got some advice I would have gave. Right? He wasn't going to take it, but I would have gave it. So what would you have told your mama 30 some years ago that you think would have had an impact in her business as an entrepreneur, knowing what you know now?
So a few things come to mind.
Oh, come on.
A few things.
We ain't going to tell your mama, Candace. We ain't going to tell your mama.
So here's the first thing. So I recall, and I don't know, maybe she did do, have some stuff on the computer. I think this is back when they had, I'm trying to remember, like, green screens. They would still like MLS system on green screens or whatever. But I recall she would have lots of paper, right? Lots of folders that were usually like legal size, right? Because contracts were long and all that. And she would have all the clients in different files and stuff. The first thing, if she didn't have it, is to make sure you've got a CRM system on point that is going to work for you. So all of the data points, any of the interactions, whether all the way down to this was the closing gift maybe I gave, or I had talked to them, but, or showed them a few houses, but they decided to put the pause on it or whatever. And I set myself an auto reminder to follow up 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Like having a system to be able to collect your data is gold. The data is it is bloodline. There is money in your data. So that would have been the first thing. The second thing is I probably would have encouraged her to just sort of play around with experiences. So you sell the house, and one of the things that comes to my mind, so in the agency, I had a client who she was really good at, what's the word? Interior designing, but staging. Yeah, she was just really, really good at staging, and she kind of wanted to like branch off. I mean, she would kind of position herself as, I'm a great agent and I can, help evaluate your staging. But one of the things that we were talking about is, okay, so why aren't we making this like an offering that you can do that doesn't require you to be in town and show a house, but it could be with somebody who's just preparing to sell, right? And they need to get something together or whatever. And who knows, that may be also a referral opportunity for you for another realtor in that state, another income stream, or maybe it isn't. Maybe he just lives alone, right? You've given them their shoppable list. You've designed their thing remotely. It's all connected in the same vein. So I would say really looking what's adjacent to real estate. Like when you're focusing on, I don't know, first-time home buyers or the millennial market or people who are downsizing, whatever, think about, and I always say this to clients now, so real estate or not, know who you are targeting, right? So if you like to work with first-time home buyers, what are the things that you know about on that journey that you might also be able to help them with? Right? That also creates another revenue opportunity for you. And it's a step along their journey. So that would be the second thing. Third thing is more on it's just kind of like a keep your mindset open. And this is one that I've learned recently. So as I've gotten more involved in sort of real estate investing and just learning all the ins and outs, when I go in to learn stuff, honey, I go hard. So from learning about wholesaling, subject twos, right, flips, all this stuff, right? My mom and I, since she had been in the real estate industry, at one period in time, I was like, okay, I'm just going to try wholesaling. Yeah, I didn't really like it. But I was like, okay, Mom, we can do this together, right? This, that. But she had a bit of a mindset that was still a pure realtor, right? And when I say that, right, when it comes to wholesaling, so if you know anything about wholesaling, when it comes to wholesaling, your objective as a realtor and your objective as a wholesaler are two different things, right? So wholesaler, I'm trying to get this property way undervalued so I can do what I need to do, right? Keep it moving, help the person out so they can, be along it and acquire it and resell it, sell the contract. And so as a realtor, if you've got the lens of, oh, no, you don't want to do that. You can get, this value. And they're just like, no, I need to leave. Or pretty soon my property's going into foreclosure. Like, it's keeping your mind open to kind of the lanes that are in real estate. So that if you kind of want to flow or you encounter a certain situation, you don't lose an opportunity because you're dealing with somebody who needs to get to a place that you're not prepared to handle. Right?
Oh,
So
and I'm gonna tell you why. I interviewed Driving for Dollar Mastery, who's a wholesaler, about concepts for realtors to be able to discover off-market inventory and to also help them build their wholesaler relationships, right? Now, with that being said, one thing that I want to just keep in mind, which is kind of crazy, is the fact that my son is a second generation realtor. And this weekend, him and another agent at my office, Cassandra Sneed, both posted out Driving for Dollar Mastery because they have shifted their mindset. We need to have today, because of a lack of inventory, a wholesaler's eye in today's marketplace. Not that you have to implement all of the strategies, but you need to take some of that strategy. The same way that a wholesaler is a shark out here and they're finding inventory, we need to find it too. But here was the spin on it, Candace. This is the spin. Not to list the property, but because most of us have an all-star bench lined up, warm, ready, willing, able buyers to do a exclusive buyer agreement with compensation and a for sale by owner with the person who needs to sell their property quickly, because we don't have a fiduciary responsibility to that seller. So everything you just said, right? I told everybody, I said, we need to shift our minds because there isn't a lack of inventory. There's a lack of listed properties. Now, you know what? They would have thought I paid you to say what you just said.
Not at all. That just popped in. Again, that is from some experiences that were like, maybe last year fresh. They were fresh experiences where it's like, man, all this. And that was eye-opening for my mom too, right? As we just sort of had that conversation, I introduced her to this world. And and you think about a bench, right? If you're dealing with investors, which she deals with investors all the time, right? Dip in, again, let's just understand the journey, right? And think about how you can help on a different path, right? There's opportunities out here. It's just like you're going to think differently to get them.
Wow. And the fact, the customer relationship management system, autoresponder, the playground with the experiences like the stager, which I have 9 sources of income all derived from real estate, right? And I'm telling people, when you have to pivot or make a shift, you don't have to go to another industry. You have spent a lot of time in this industry. You understand what you believe that it needs and wants, because there's a difference between your needs and your wants, right? Yeah. You want to figure out a way, how do you become the person to provide that to the industry? So everything you just said, girl, you talking my love language. Ooh, I'm feeling it too.
Let it flow. Let it flow.
So they come into the industry, they set up a customer relationship management system. Now we're dealing with the ability to sustain their businesses, right? The customer relationship management system definitely is going to play a part. But what is one thing you've done in the past year that you would encourage other entrepreneurs to do?
On the CRM related front, like on a data front?
Period. Just one thing, because we're always learning something new. We have those epiphanies or we have those aha moments, right? In the midst of a pandemic, what is something that you learned that you like, oh, okay, that's kind of genius. Wish I would have known this sooner. It might have had some impact. And I'll give you an example for me. I 100% believe that as a real estate keynote speaker, it was going to earn me the most amount of money in the fewest hours possible. Mm-hmm. Now, what I didn't take in consideration was the other time vested, like the transportation time. I know that I'm going to go spend a night, whatever the case may be, but I really enjoy traveling and meeting realtors. It wasn't until I was forced to come home, until I became gainfully unemployed from my primary source of income, even though I had these other sources. But that number one, that big heavy hitter, no longer even exists, right? I haven't been on a plane since March the 13th, 2020. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've accomplished more, though, sitting down. Like, yeah. I was under the impression that I was making the most amount of money utilizing my skill set. I really needed to be at home to sit down, to get some focus on what I really should be doing, what would be the best utilization of my time. And so that's a lesson I learned in the past year, that last year, this time, we would have fought about it. Like I would have argued you down. Like, what? Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, right? It would have been one of those. And now I'm sitting here like, girl, you should have had your butt at home alone. What?
You didn't just realize it? Yeah.
Because as a keynote speaker, you think, when you come up with these great programs, you get to go to work, you get to get cute, right? They providing you transportation, front door to front door, housekeeping, 3 square meals a day. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about that life. I just realized my time could be utilized in a different manner to produce better outcomes.
Right. Yeah, I would say for me, so a couple things come to mind. The first thing, and I've always been big on building teams, right? When I left corporate, I was managing a team of 12. I've always been big on building teams and just sort of carrying forward. But one of the things that I've kind of really reinforced learned is the value that you bring. Sometimes you can kind of get blind to it, right? And what I mean is, you may have clients that come, they thank you that, this is great, it's great. I've got this, I've got that. That's fantastic. But it wasn't really until, and I've seen this with a previous business, like 9 years ago, I had a catering and events business and I had some staff, just event, temporary type thing. But it wasn't until I began to say, okay, first off, Candace, you're not growing this alone. Of course not, right? Candace is just in the business of growing large businesses. I like building businesses. But I was carrying with me too, though, this sort of thought of this burdensome thought that was like, oh, but I do it so well. I do this particular thing so well. It's going to be a massive undertaking to start bringing people in. It wasn't until I let go of that, like there can be people who are just as good, if not better, and you want those who are better, right, than you at doing certain things. Once I had gotten to a certain point on my own, brought enough in on my own, I was like, okay, one, I can't handle this. And so I brought in a coaching team. So now I've actually got a coaching team, right? I've got 2 success coaches and a mindset coach and a sales coach that's coming in. And so that, like I told them, when first brought them on board, it was like watching my baby go to college. There was like all this letting go. But now it feels amazing when I can see all the appointments that come in for clients doing check-ins. And I'm kind of like, oh, wait, they don't need me. But this is good because they're getting what they need. Same thing from a sales perspective. I just onboarded a sales team. We're in the midst of the second week of training, a couple reps. I carried with me, again, a lot of that mental shifting. I'm like, oof, okay, how's this going to go? Is this going to be all right? Is this going to be okay? Are they going to have what they need? Are they going to be able to do it as well as I can? Blah, 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 blah. But, right, as we're starting to go through this, again, now when I talk about recognizing how valuable you are, so yeah, that was valuable to me. But anytime I talk to any of them and I hear them talk about how grateful they are to be a part and to be in my life and in the life of the accelerator and what that's doing for them, or for some of my coaches, when I can enclose their book inside of our welcome box and how that helps move her forward. Like, you just don't recognize there's so much gold when you start to recognize how valuable you are and how valuable you can be to other people. And begin to sort of surround yourself and sort of building a team. Like, it is okay. And maybe it costs you a little bit of money, but I bet you, right, you're going to see that return, even if that's an assistant to help you with your, your listing appointments or your whatever it is that you're doing. Like, recognize that you are valuable and you can be valuable to not only your clients, but to other people. And being valuable to other people generally leads in you increasing your own revenue and bottom line. So that was a big one for me, is just kind of letting go.
You're talking to me.
Mentally.
You're talking to me. Failure to delegate has been my biggest issue, the biggest hurdle for me to overcome. And so in the past 45 days, I brought on a website designer, right? And she's on for several months. And then I brought in a assistant, and then I hired a bookkeeper because I absolutely hate that aspect of the business. And I'm like, okay. And now I'm looking at success coaches, a mindset coach, right? That is their jam. They do it substantially better than I could ever do it. And each week I'm realizing that, yes, it's cost money. However, the deliverables are so much more substantial than anything I could ever deliver by myself. And I'm sitting back because I'm at awe at the end of each week, what we've accomplished that I know I could not have accomplished by myself.
Amen.
Right. And so most definitely, wow, you have dropped some nuggets. So one, I want people to know how they can connect with you. And two, if you could share just a little bit about this new community that you're building.
Yeah. So a couple things. You can find me almost anywhere. Candace Spears. Instagram is probably a bigger one, at Candace Spears. Facebook, CAND Spears. LinkedIn, Candace Spears. You should be able to find my face. I've got a free Facebook community. It's called Escape Corporate, Snatch Freedom, and Build Legacy. And so there are about 890 some women who are in corporate America who are like, oh no, I got to take my brilliance and really own it. Own my time, my talent, my identity. And so we help support in that community. I'm usually live in there every week talking about things that are helpful for you on the transition. You get a lot of mindset stuff, right? Because Marky, you and I both know if you don't get your mental game right, you are what you believe. This just is what it is. And if that's a community that you'd like to come into, if you just go to ownersnow.com, it'll take you right to that community. But yeah, so that ownership, just own it. Just own everything. I'm getting too printed that say that. It's just, I live it and breathe it.
Yeah, I know. And then, so you had me online. I'm up here in Wisconsin looking at this beautiful lake. And I know that you're building a Airbnb on acres that you purchased, right? Kind of remote, a little bit remote location. So how many Airbnbs, tell them about that community, because you are very vested in the world of real estate in a unique, emerging way.
Yes. So I have got 4 acres in Lactofonbo, Wisconsin, which probably no one has heard of. So it's actually just outside of Minocqua, which is a popular tourist destination up north in northern Wisconsin. And so what I'm most interested in, right, is very unique builds. So what we're doing right now is a shipping container build. It's planned to be 800 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, like large 10 to 12 feet sliding glass on both sides. So you can take advantage of these super tall oak trees. It's in a wooded, beautiful area, lakes all over the place. And so you've got this one property, and my plan, as long as I don't run into zoning trouble, check all this stuff out ahead of time. My plan is to do at least 2. I would love to do 3, but do at least 2 on that particular property. And so as I'm growing this portfolio, it's really about having havens to relax and retreat and reconnect. Because when you talk about being able to own, right, your time, your talent, your identity, it requires you to stop for a second and just get it together, right? And listen and hear and reconnect and not allow yourself to be bombarded with what the outside may tell you you should be. And so that's what's happening there. So first of many is the plan. And that's that. If you happen to want to visit Northern Wisconsin, you can go to mpgstay.com and jump on the waiting list. And yeah, we're doing some fun stuff.
Everybody go and jump on the waiting list. Candace, I'm elated to have you here with me today as we are a part of Industry Syndicate. I'm pretty elated to announce that today for the first time. I think I nailed it, but we will see. Look, when we listen to these replays, how everything has gone today. Thank you for being here.